Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and the craziness of October continues on. I mean, there's a lot of big games releasing this month, including Mario Wonder, which we're going to talk about that here in just a second. That game is sounding amazing. But then there's also the Microsoft Activision Blizzard stuff that's being worked through in the background. News is expected sometime here soon, and I mean, there's a very real chance that it could close by the end of this week. Now, that's not necessarily a guarantee, and we're still going to have to wait and see what happens there. But Activision Blizzard, they made a very interesting statement today. Just ahead of the Modern Warfare 3 release, they laid the groundwork on what their fans should expect from them in Xbox Game Pass post-acquisition. So we're going to talk about that today and whether or not what they are saying is actually true. And then also it sounds like a big PlayStation game is about ready to get an announcement that I know a lot of fans have been very eager about. Before we get started, though, I want to go and remind you all to hit that subscribe and ring that bell. That way you'll be notified every time I post a new daily gaming news dose, which is every single weekday, Monday through Friday. We're on the road to 60,000 subscribers, and I mean, we're almost there. So let's see if we can get those numbers up as we start to hit that holiday period. With that said, though, let's just go and jump right into the news, starting off with Mario Wonder. So, I mean, and I think we all kind of know this by this point, this really is a huge month for gaming, and Mario Wonder is one of the main reasons why. I'd say really anytime a new mainline Mario game launches, that's a special time in gaming. I mean, Mario is quite literally the most recognizable gaming character of all time, and those mainline games, they are highly, highly cherished, not just for a couple years, but for generations. And I think especially when it comes to the 2D games. I mean, if you really think about it, there's just so many people out there who's been introduced to gaming by playing a 2D Mario game, whether that be on the NES, the Super Nintendo, or even the Wii. And that's one of the reasons that Mario Wonder is just so exciting. It's been a while since we've gotten a brand new 2D Mario game, but even more so, it's Nintendo's willingness to break out of a familiar mold. They've gone out of their way to attempt something completely new here, and that's really starting to show out now that critics are getting their hands on Mario Wonder themselves. Final previews have started to roll out today, and definitely go check them out for a more in-depth opinion. But the one thing that I've consistently heard about this game is that it's an innovatively creative game. Not just the various new enemies that you're seeing, but the new Wonder mechanic really shakes things up by constantly throwing new gameplay mechanics at players. Now, I'm not going to go into specific details here just because I think some of that should be left as a surprise for when you play it yourself. So I don't want to ruin that experience for anyone. Again, go check out the early previews if you want to do that yourself. You absolutely can. But it's clear that Nintendo's creativity is on full display in Mario Wonder. And the reason for that is because they developed it with that mindset being a primary focus. This is such a fascinating approach to creating a new game in an existing franchise, but the reason that this game is so creative is because while developing Mario Wonder, Nintendo set a period of development where they weren't allowed to use any enemies, any gimmicks, or gameplay ideas from past titles. And that's why you're seeing just so many completely new creative ideas in Mario Wonder, and it really shows. Like, I think right now, there's some excitement for Mario Wonder. We can see that. There's no doubt about that. But I think that it could still potentially surprise people when it releases because it's just so over-the-top imaginative. I think it's going to catch some people off guard. But, I mean, I guess we'll see here in just 11 days. But I'm expecting this game to be absolutely fantastic. By this point, I'm kind of wondering, can this game break that 90 score on Metacritic? Let me know what you all think about that in the comments below. Now, we also got an update for Baldur's Gate 3 because one thing that fans were a little bit upset about was that there's no physical copy. Now, they did release a physical version over in Asia published by Spike Chunsoft, but other than that, I mean, this is a digital-only release, or at least as of right now. Sounds like that they might be reconsidering those plans after all because their director of publishing seemingly teased a physical release so long as there's enough interest. That's kind of the thing about all this, though, because things have changed for Larian Studios since this game first launched. The success of Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't just a surprise for a lot of fans out there, but it also took the studio by surprise as well. They were actually expecting about 100,000 players for its opening weekend, and now in hindsight, we all kind of know that that was sorely wrong. They had like 800,000 concurrent players for its opening weekend, and with so much interest, a physical release does make a lot more sense now. Not only for new customers, but I'm sure plenty of fans would enjoy buying it again just to own a physical release. Now, it'll probably take a while. I wouldn't go in expecting this to happen anytime soon, definitely not this year, but it does appear to now be a possibility at the bare minimum. Let's go and talk about the Activision Blizzard acquisition, though. Last week I had mentioned that once the acquisition goes through, that's when the real fun begins. I mean, we're tired of hearing from regulators that they had their time to shine. Now move on. Don't you dare do something dumb this week. I'm looking at you, CMA. I'm looking at you, the EU. Just let this acquisition go through. Enough is enough. Microsoft has gone above and beyond to appease these regulators, even if some of the things that they requested were truthfully a little out of bounds. It is what it is. But here we are, and hopefully, crossing my fingers, but hopefully this is almost over, which means that Microsoft can finally sit down with Activision Blizzard and answer the many, many questions that fans have about their future together. They did the same thing with Bethesda. Once that acquisition completed, they had that entire Roundhouse event, and I would expect the same for Activision Blizzard. Well, apparently, Activision is getting a little ahead of the game here because they've already answered at least one major question regarding Xbox Game Pass. This is what they had to say. It's awesome to see anticipation building for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 as we continue to work toward regulatory approval of the Microsoft deal. We've been getting some questions whether our upcoming and recently launched games will be available via Game Pass. While we do not have plans to put Modern Warfare 3 or Diablo 4 into Game Pass this year, once the deal closes, we expect to start working with Xbox to bring our titles to more players around the world, and we anticipate that we would begin adding games into Game Pass sometime in the course of next year. Now, Phil Spencer did previously say that you shouldn't expect everything to release into Game Pass as soon as the acquisition is completed. It will take time to do something like that, but Activision's going a little bit further than that by saying, hey, we're not going to be adding them until 2024. And you have to kind of wonder about that statement to at least some degree. Obviously, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is going to be a massive, massive game. We all know this, and that's truthfully why they're telling all this right now. They're saying, hey, don't skip out on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. You should buy it right now. So more or less, they're trying to stifle some of the speculation out there that could potentially hurt their day one sales numbers and momentum. That's the right business decision to make. However, this statement might not be necessarily completely truthful. According to Jez Corden over at Windows Central, he's been hearing otherwise, and this is what he had to say. Our sources indicate, surprising nobody, that despite Activision's statements, you can expect to see a bunch of Activision stuff hit Xbox Game Pass as soon as the deal is finalized. And this would actually follow a similar trend as the Bethesda buyout. See, the thing about that acquisition is that it completed on March 9th of 2021, and then right after that, they dropped their first batch of Game Pass games on March 12th, just 3 days later. So you can kind of take that as you will, but right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped a batch of Activision Blizzard games sometime during this holiday. Maybe not necessarily everything, but similar to the Bethesda acquisition, they might drop a batch of Game Pass games early on and then kind of build over time. We'll see what happens with all this, but I will say this much though, Modern Warfare 3 is in a weird position. Sony does have the marketing rights for that specific game, and that might keep it from releasing into Game Pass day one this year. I'm not really sure how that situation will work out. It's really a bizarre dynamic. Thankfully, though, this will be the last year of Sony's marketing contract for Call of Duty. So starting next year, then Call of Duty for sure will release into Game Pass day one from that point forward. But currently, there are some questions as to what Microsoft can do with Modern Warfare 3, at least for this holiday. We'll need to see how all that plays out. But if Jez Corden's sources are right, there's plenty of other possibilities, such as Crash Bandicoot. You have Spyro, several of the older Call of Duty games that Xbox just ironically fixed right around the original Activision Blizzard acquisition deadline, and hey, maybe even Diablo 4. Sony does not have a contract for that game. That could be a major inclusion this holiday. Let me hear your all's predictions here, though. Do you think Modern Warfare 3 will come to Game Pass this year? And what about all the other Activision Blizzard titles? Will we really have to wait until 2024 as Activision claims, or is Jez Corden's sources right about the situation instead? Will we see at least some Activision Blizzard games in Game Pass this year? Okay, now we also got a rather interesting update for an upcoming PlayStation console exclusive being Silent Hill 2 Remake. A lot of people genuinely believe that the original game is one of the best horror games of all time, and we still really see its impact to this day. There's so many horror games that are still inspired by that original title. So this remake is, I mean, it's a really big deal for hardcore horror game fans, and if you're one of those fans that's anxiously awaiting news, well, I'm happy to tell you that it sounds like some kind of an announcement is brewing in the background. It was discovered that its Steam page has received various updates recently, including Brazilian and Ukrainian subtitles, and then most importantly, they added achievements to its Steam page. Now, that's an important development because achievements are usually added closer to the end of development. So, based on that information, it sounds like that we are getting closer to an official release date, maybe sometime soon, and I wouldn't be all that surprised if an announcement is incoming. Now, I highly doubt that it's going to release this year. That doesn't sound feasible considering we only have a few months left. But what I think could happen here is they could announce it at an incoming showcase. The Game Awards is right around the corner. Put 2 and 2 together here. That would be the perfect place to announce a release date for 2024. They could start to build up the hype at one of the biggest gaming events for the entire year, the Game Awards. I mean, it draws massive, massive numbers, so that would put this game on a lot of people's radar. So hey, let's just go ahead and start the hype train for the Game Awards, which might include Silent Hill 2 Remake. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though. We're asked you all, do you plan on revisiting Redfall now that it has a 60 frames per second patch? And yeah, wow, okay, so about a third of you intend on doing just that. Now, that's exactly what you want to see with a big update like this. This is a real opportunity for them to right their wrongs, which is not only important for this game, but in a way, it also gives Arcane a chance to redeem themselves for future games as well. They can show a more complete vision of Redfall and get fans back on their side again as they work on their next project. For me, though, I would like to go back and play this game a little bit more. I might turn it on just to kind of see how it feels and everything. I actually enjoyed this game when it first came out, and I wouldn't mind jumping back in and playing a little bit more. But the only problem here is that I really just can't right now. There's just too many other games to play as of this moment. I'll be playing Forza here soon. Spider-Man 2, that's right around the corner. I'm super pumped to play Mario Wonder with my family. We were just talking about that earlier. Alan Wake 2, it looks fantastic. I love that first game. And then there's also Sonic Superstars. And the crazy part is that's just for this month alone. So I don't really think that I have time for Redfall at this moment. But it is cool to see it get this update. And I'm glad to see a lot of interest for it here because I really do believe that it's a rather solid game. It was just buried under some of its launch issues. But hopefully this patch goes a long way in fixing a lot of that up. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.